You are very welcome back to the show. Now, when it comes to the teeth, you'd be hard-pressed to find more curious customs and how to get that winning smile.
There was never christened a drop of whiskey that never saw neither water nor excisemen neither. Now, a drop of that, sir, would be the finest thing out for preserving the teeth. Every day in life, at least once.
Now, that was unbaptized whiskey being touted as an ancient cure for toothache from the satirical RT series Hall's Pictorial Weekly from 1976. And Shane Lahan, that's probably not too far from what people were spouting as customs for teeth around then.
Sinead, if I had a toothache, I wouldn't be long. A small drop of poteen or whiskey and swill it around. Or the Maharani gin that you had on earlier on. That could be very nice as well, you know.
Chance that.
But listen, I'm delighted with all the chance to talk about teeth. But before I do, can I say, I've a lovely fan, we'll call her, okay, lovely person, Nuala Vaughan from Lahin. She watches me on this programme, and I just want to say hello to her today because she's a superstar. And she always cleans her teeth, okay? So we'll leave it
good news. I feel like I have something in my teeth because I only finished Wade's crumble there 2 seconds ago.
Fantastic. So listen, you know, when I think about the teeth, there's so many things to talk about. Part of my world is archaeology, and teeth are a big deal because we can say an awful lot about people in the past. You know, we can tell what age somebody was from their teeth, you know, their tooth eruption, what they were doing with their teeth. One of the extraordinary things that happens is that when we move from the hunter-gatherers, fishers, into the Neolithic, into when the first agriculturists come in, their teeth begin to wear down because of all of the grinding of all the cornstones and so on. So you get this dental attrition. And I think it's kind of amazing that we can look at all of those sort of aspects of teeth and we can say so much from it.
I imagine that would have been painful as well.
Oh, absolutely.
To grind down
go
the
right
enamel.
down into the pulp, right down into the nerve endings. But it's something that happens. So people used to care for their teeth in a variety of different ways. And I often think about it is that, you know, we think about brushes, you know, toothbrushes. So there was, in the past, you know, people had this thing called, there was actually a part of a tree in Egypt that was used, the end of it used to fray, and this was something they used to use to brush their teeth long ago. And then we moved on to the pig bristles. Later on there were horse hairs and so on, but it was a long time before people actually came up with anything like you and I might imagine as in terms of the toothbrush. In fact, what most people used, believe it or not, was a feather. And what they used to do is they used to literally like scrape off bits of their teeth, you know, with the feather.
Like you would a toothpick today, I suppose. So that kind of...
And the small ones, that's exactly it. They use the small little feathers to go in between the teeth and so on. So feathers were amazing. And if you think about the toothpicks that are there, they actually look exactly like the hollowed out piece of a feather and so on. But the next thing, of course, that you and I would think of, tonight we'd say, we'll go brushing our teeth, you know? But you couldn't go down to the shop long ago and buy a tube of toothpaste. You had to make your own. And what I find fascinating is that what's in toothpaste today, it was exactly the same as what was there long ago. You had to have something which was abrasive, something that was going to scour down the teeth a little bit, okay? So what you had, one of the favourite things that people had, they took the soot, literally off the pots and off the chimney and so on. That was one little idea. And we were talking about charcoal being very good and people having charcoal toothpaste. You added a little bit of wood ash as well. That was another big component that was in there. I brought all these in. Another favourite, they was they burn the eggshells and grind them down, and that was another sort of abrasive that was there.
It's mad the imagination, isn't it?
Salt was there as well, there's all of that. And you would usually add it up to kind of a paste. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then what would happen with that is that you also, the other reason for brushing your teeth was to get fresh breath. And therefore you would add in something like honey, of course that's one of my things. Cloves as well were often ground up and used. Mint was taken. So just for you today, what did I make up last night? But the ancient toothpaste, okay? And I'll give you the first smell of this and see what you think, okay?
Have you used this, Shane?
No, I don't think I would be recommending anyone at home to do anything.
That's all right.
Isn't it? Isn't it? I was absolutely stunned.
It's like a clove drop.
It is,
Sure.
and you know what? I was expecting it to smell terrible and look terrible. But you know, you could imagine people using
not bad
that.
at all.
No, it's not bad in the least.
No, that's nice.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd clear your airways if nothing else.
I clear everything else along with it.
But you know, even when people were brushing their teeth mad with that, in fact, they used to use an old rag.
Would I taste it?
I wouldn't.
No,
There's wood ash and everything.
Okay.
I wouldn't be recommending it. That you know.
Okay.
But anyway, but what they used to do is they used to have old toothaches, you know, and people had all sorts of remedies for toothaches long ago. And I was saying to you, you'd be swilling it with whiskey and you'd be doing, chewing cloves was a very, very popular thing to do as well. But there was a number of magic sort of ideas. And one favourite one, of course, was, you know, you had all the usual stuff like get a hare's egg or the broth breed, or you get the Easter water, or, you know, you throw a cat into a graveyard. People had all these pishogues about how to get rid of different things. But one of the most famous ones was you'd go to the graveyard, and long ago there were lots of skulls lying around the place. And if you had a pain in your tooth here, you would actually take up someone's skull and you had to pull out that tooth with your own teeth, okay? That was the famous sort of... and of course, this was such a taboo. Yeah. Nobody would ever do that.
Okay,
but
that's good to hear.
Yeah, so but of course, and there's loads of stories about all of that event. But the best one I heard, and this was really interesting, and I have to tell you about this. I have a past student, wonderful lady, Eleanor O'Sullivan. She spent her whole life working in the dental hospital here in Cork. And she was researching some work with me because I was telling her that a great tradition, if you had a toothache, you got a live frog, and you put the frog into your mouth and you made it screech 3 times. And people would say, that will get rid of the pain in your tooth. And I would say to Eleanor, look, that's obviously a pishogue. There's no real, solid information about that. But from her scientific background, she came along and she found out something really interesting. Number one, when the frog is distressed, it exudes a sort of a mucus, secretes a mucus all over its body. And she looked at the chemical compounds in those, and I had to write them down because I'm not a scientist. She tells me that they're temperins, which are antibacterial, antimicrobial, okay? There's a thing called epipatidine, which is analgesic. It's a kind of a non-opioid, takes away the pain. And in addition to that, there are peptides which cause vasodilation, which actually will help the curing process. So the old idea, and it's all over the Irish folklore record, of putting a live frog in your mouth actually has a scientific basis.
Not that we would recommend anybody going around and putting
I'm not recommending anyone to do that.
We
but that's interesting.
Yeah, we might recommend using the tongs either. Tell us about that one.
So listen, you know, sometimes then with all the effort, of course, you had to get the tooth out. And who did you go to? There were no dentists. The man who was the dentist was the blacksmith. Why? Because he was the strongest man in the village, number one, and he had all the apparatus, okay? So the apparatus at the time would be something here like this, the famous tongs that I was showing you earlier on, okay? But the way he used this was very simple. Somebody was coming in, they had a bad toothache. He would sit them down, okay, in front of the anvil. He would tie a cord around their tooth, and he tied to the peak or the horn of the anvil there. And when they weren't looking, he'd go back to the fire and he'd put the tongs into the fire and he'd redden it up. And then when they were least expecting it, he'd come back with the tongs, and with that, they'd have to go backwards, and of course their tooth would come out. So that was the method, and that was a great method of taking out the teeth.
I was trying to figure that out. I said, does he punch it out at the top? But that's what I was thinking.
No. So that was it. And I'm telling you what, you wouldn't stay when that was coming towards you. You would push back, and of course it was tied to the strong anvil was there.
No, you have a pipe there. I want to get the pipe before we go.
Oh, listen, this is fantastic. And long ago, of course, the Dudines with the British smoking tobacco, one of the things that they used to do would be in the side of their mouth. Your tooth enamel is the hardest thing in your body when you think about it, okay? But sometimes it used to chip. And what we have is that we have some archaeological evidence, particularly from the famine period, where one side of the mouth, you can see it there in that photograph, was totally worn away, where the dudeen used to go in because people were chomping down on the hard porcelain of the chalk pipe, and that's the evidence we have for that sort of activity. But I want to show you one thing. I know that we're under time pressure here, but these are a pair of dentures, a pair of false teeth. It is nearly impossible to get a pair of false teeth now because very few people have them. But long ago, this was a dowry. Long ago, people, when they were getting married, part of the thing was that you'd pay the money, the woman would go off, she'd get all her teeth out, and she'd come back looking like a film star. And that was the kind of the idea that was there. And then on top of that, people used to borrow them. You might have one set between husband and wife.
Oh, stop
all of those sort of things. So they're a big part of the tradition as well.
Oh, Shane, I want to talk more about the false teeth, but we have to go.
I definitely don't, Shane.
My pleasure.
You're back again next year with some more mysteries and customs and everything. So we're looking forward to that.
To say the least. Thank you, Shane.
Of course, we will have pieces from the natural.